Welcome back to the Justin Prince Show, man. I am really excited for you guys to meet the man I'm going to introduce you to today. So I think a lot of us, have you guys ever had that thing where you're like, man, I want to like help people. I'm passionate about the youth, or I'm passionate about helping single moms, or I'm passionate about men, or I'm passionate about helping athletes, or whatever it is. But you guys know how life is. You just kind of get going, doing your life and doing your business. It doesn't mean you lose the passion, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you don't go do it. You're going to meet a guy today that, amongst being a dad and amongst being a husband and amongst running a business and having his whole life going, he just had this passion for Christian men and to really see if he could make an impact. And he's done just that. He's built an incredible organization called Rise Up Kings. He's a visionary entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a speaker, and he's a family man. And as the CEO of Rise Up Kings, it's a company that's dedicated to empowering men and women to reach their full potential in all the aspects of their life. And he's authored multiple books, including The 2-Day CEO and the RUC, which stands for Rise Up Kings 90-Day Journal. One other thing that I'm excited about you guys to learn from him is he doesn't just get men together, and which, by the way, would be great, and have them, be vulnerable and go through. He built real curriculum for these guys, right? So they go through both like mental curriculum where they're learning things, but then also really physical stuff. I'm excited for you guys to learn more about how he like physically challenges people. So, Skylar, we first met. I think we first met online. I think I was on your podcast, and I went and spoke at your event. It was a super, super impressive group of people. Both your internal team and then all the incredible men that you work with. So, brother, I'm super fired up that you're here, and thanks for making the effort, and excited to dive in with you.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be on the show. It was great having you at our conference and watching you up on stage. Just drop some fire, man. You have some skill. God has given you some talent in inspiring human beings to operate at a higher level.
So, kind of walk us back through some of your early days, because what I'm trying to figure out is, how did you get to this stage where you're leading people? Do you feel like as a young man, like when you're in high school and things, were you a leader? Were people following you? Were people saying, "Hey, take us to the next level," or were you more shy? Like, walk us through what you were like as a kid growing up.
Yeah, now that you say that, I guess you could say I struggled with a lot of insecurity as a kid. So I grew up on the lower middle income, but pretty low middle income. So we grew up in a 700 square foot mobile home, in a mobile home park, and so I just always felt like I was less than. When I went to school, and other kids just had nicer things than I did. And so I always had a kind of some insecurity that I dealt with. Was wearing glasses before glasses were cool. Now my two boys wear glasses, and they're like the cool, the cool kids. But back then, right, they called me Four Eyes, and so I dealt with these insecurities. However, I did have a desire to lead, and so anything I was doing, I was usually the one kind of driving it forward and moving it forward. And so I started just launching like small little companies when I was 12 years old, 13, 14. Uh, Started just like mowing lawns and like doing these things, and then gathering people to go do it with me. And so I guess you could say I was a leader. I was a very insecure, immature leader that lacks some character based on some of the uh, results that I had accidentally negatively produced on that journey. So, yeah.
So, as a parent listening to this, if they want their kid to kind of have that, let's call it that entrepreneurial bend, right, to go start mowing lawns or shoveling snow. I was doing shoveling snow when I was a little kid. I'd go out to all my neighbors and create little flyers, and I'd go pitch them on my snow shoveling removal business. But is that something you think the kid either kind of has it in them, and it just is in them, and you can't almost turn it off, or is it something that a parent can instill and breathe some life into, or encourage the kids to get out there and do stuff like that?
It's a great question. And so I'm dealing with that with my two boys right now. So one's 8, one's 11, and they're Brendan, my older kid. I'm doing morning mentorship sessions with them. So this morning at 6 a.m., I was mentoring them, going through how to set goals, right? How to and so he knows he does. We did a whole conversation around laziness today. He doesn't have a lot of motivation for things. Like, he's not very motivated in sports. He doesn't push real hard. Business stuff, he'll kind of do things that he likes, but then not give his all. And then I have Jeremiah, my 8-year-old, who's, dude, the guy's out practicing basketball every single day for 1 to 2 hours a day. He's 8 years old. He wants to be in the NBA. He's like
Yeah.
committed and all in. Like they're totally opposite. They're totally opposite kids. And so I believe some people just have that ambition and drive kind of built into them. And I think once people find what they love, they can go all out on that. So my goal is to help Brendan find something that he loves where he can really like start to show up. But for me, I was ambitious enough where I was just hunting to find what I love to go create success. And I think part of that had to do with some of the insecurity that I had. However, it definitely served me.
Was faith a big part of your life growing up as a kid? Like were your folks, in the church, or were they, was faith a part of your growing up?
Yeah, it was. My dad wasn't a big man of faith, but my mom was very loved Jesus, but was totally broken. So she, struggled with alcohol addiction, got into drugs, and just had a lot of issues growing up. So I was kind of confused. I saw her going to church, and loving Jesus and praying, and then doing everything else that the world offered. And so I actually thought I could do that same thing. I'm like, okay, that's what it means to be a Christian. So yeah, I would carry the Bible around at school, but then I'd be, trying to hook up with girls and do all the normal stuff without. So it was very hypocritical and ineffective. And so I eventually got to the point where I kind of just put God to the side and said, you know what, I'm just going to live my life, and I don't
Like
want to give
what
God a
age
bad
was
name.
this?
Huh?
What age were you
That was
making those
about that was
decisions?
about I was probably 17, about to graduate high school, and then I had just, I don't know, I got a bad rep and some just trying to be the ladies' man type deal, and then so I kind of stopped carrying the Bible to school. I'm like, you know what? I don't want. I feel like I'm giving God a bad rep, and so I walked away, not from the faith, but publicly, like, pushing God for maybe 4 or 5 years until I met my wife.
Hmm. And did you go right into kind of an entrepreneurial journey, at 18, 19, 20, 21, that kind of thing? Or did you start off in your business career kind of as in an employee role?
Yeah, I mean, I was an employee. Got my first like real job when I was 16, but man, I was always had a job during high school, but then I was always doing stuff. So I had a whole candy distribution business in high school. Like I brought duffel bags of candy, and I'd have other kids sell candy, and they'd bring the money back to me, and that's how like I was making pretty good money. I built a website design business. Got my real estate license when I was 18. Everybody was out partying. I got my real estate license as soon as I turned 18. I think within a couple weeks, I had my appointment set. Like so, yeah. I had a vision to be an entrepreneur. I did not want to be working for somebody else, and so my vision was to go start businesses. So as soon as I turned 18, I started launching and starting all kinds of businesses. Most of them failed, and then a
Yeah.
couple were successful.
The fire restoration business, when did that start for you?
Yeah. We had actually built a whole call center. So when I was 22, I met my wife. We launched within a few months a call center in San Diego. We built it up to 20 people, 20 salespeople. We were sending out almost 100,000 mailers a month for doing like loans and some debt settlement stuff, and really scaled that within a year. It was $1 million business, which is pretty amazing at that age, and grew that. And we ended up selling that, moved back to Temecula in Southern California, and then I bought a. My dad had started had been in the carpet cleaning business, so I bought a carpet cleaning van. And I know marketing. So marketing and sales, if you can do marketing and sales and you have those two skill sets, like those skill sets will hands down be some of the most important skill sets a human being can learn, because you can go market and sell anything, right? So I learned marketing and sales very early on, and really put a more emphasis on learning that than I maybe did at learning my craft in certain other areas. I knew if I could market and sell well, I could eventually figure out the product thing and the service thing, what I was going to be doing. And so I said, hey, Dad, I don't really know how to do carpet cleaning, but you know how to do carpet cleaning. And so I know how to market. Can I buy a carpet? Can you teach me how to do carpet cleaning, and I'll go start marketing online and passing out flyers and doing all this stuff. So when I was about 23 and a half, somewhere in that range, I bought a carpet, or 24, bought a carpet cleaning van, and started scaling a whole carpet cleaning company. Within like 2 years, we had 4 or 5 vans. We were one of the largest in the whole area. Me and my wife. We started door knocking though. So most people, right, aren't willing to do the grind. So me and her were door knocking every day while I was building the website up, we were selling carpet cleaning, like passing out the little carpet cleaning coupon flyers. I mean, we even added house cleaning. So like, I remember this one time we were in this house. I was cleaning all the carpet, and we started doing house cleaning. So she's like scrubbing the toilet, and she was successful. She had actually built before I met my wife, I scored big time. When I met her, I was renting a room in a college student's house, and like barely surviving. Just filed bankruptcy, like lost. I just spent tons of money getting into debt, just really poor decisions. Met her, and she had her own house, she had her own BMW. She was like 23 when I had met her.
Jeez.
Super successful. She was in the worked for uh, a network marketing company, a financial services company. It was a World Financial Group. There's a lot of them, but she had worked for there. She had made 500 grand in 1 year, right? Just growing and scaling. Not her first year, but I think it was her third or fourth year, but in 1 year. And so anyway, I met her, and so luckily I had a little bit of swab, so I won her over. And so so she had made good money. So here we are. She's scrubbing a toilet in this like person's house. And then she's like, I walk over, I'm like cleaning the carpets. We're doing whatever it takes to get it going. And she looks at me, she's like, I am never doing this again. This is the last house I'm scrubbing a toilet in. She's like, you're gonna have to find some other solution for this. I said, yeah, cool, babe, I love you. Like, we'll take house cleaning off of because I think that was my deal. I'm like, let's just figure out where we want to go. So yeah, we're willing to do whatever it takes to get something off the ground is something I think a lot of people aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
Because it's a grind many times. And so we were grinding it out for that first 6 months, year and a half, just like pretty hardcore. Yeah.
Yeah, you said first of all, it's such a great story, and she is an absolute superstar. There's no question about that. So I recently have been teaching my son's church class. So my son's 11. It's kind of like the 11 and 12-year-old boys basically at church. In this last week, we were talking, going through the lesson, and something came up where one of the kids, I don't remember what they said, but it triggered my thought to tell them. I said, guys, the most important decision you guys are ever going to make. Do you guys know what it is? And these kids are like, and I go, it's who you marry.
Yeah.
So I said, the most important decision you're ever going to make is who you marry. And I said, do you know who you marry? And the kids go, I don't know. And I go, you marry who you date. And I said, so make sure you're dating good girls that are pulling you up and like making you a better man, a better person. I said, you want to know how you date good girls? They're like, I said, you become a good man. Like, in other words, if you attract people into your life, you attract, kind of a little bit of who you are in a way. And, as you look at you married a woman that pulled you up, that made you better. Let me rephrase that. She makes you better. She makes you a better man, right? She lifts you up and pulls you up. And I'm sure as you work with these men, you see the importance of these decisions. But I want to start with this one. Just talk to us about this decision of marriage. Like, if you were mentoring, if you're mentoring a young person, it could be a woman or a man, they're 16, 17, 18. What advice would you give them on those decisions of like, who they are, who they date, and ultimately who they marry?
Yeah, I think it's critical to get clear on what you want. Like with anything in life, like there's power in having clarity. So like when I met Jessica, before that I had written out exactly what I wanted in a woman, what I wanted her to look like, the qualities, the skill sets, her attitude, all kinds of stuff. I was very clear. And when I actually met her, she ended up showing me the paper of what she was looking for in a guy. I was like almost all of them except the height. She wanted someone taller, but whatever. So she's working with what she got.
We both struggle with that one, bro.
Yeah. I was like almost everything on that list. It was wild, like to the T.
You wanted 6'2". Other than that, she had it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm 5'11". She wanted a tall. My dad's 6'4". I didn't get the tall genes, but my boys will. So she ended up. So anyway, so I got clear. So I think getting clear on what you want, because it allows you. You probably teach on this, but the reticular activating system and how that works, right? Our mind is taking in millions of bits of information every second, and then the reticular activating system is the thing that actually filters out the things that are not relevant or what it believes are not relevant. So it's taking in tons of information and it narrows it down to a couple million bits of information, then narrows it down to a couple 100,000 bits of information. So we're only seeing a small sliver of actual reality. That's the way life is. And I teach this at my seminars. I'm like, you guys think you see reality? You are missing so many things, even in this room that we're sitting in. You are literally missing things and you do not see things because your mind has shifted reality. I do a lot of exercise to show that our mind deletes, distorts, and generalizes information so that it can comprehend it consciously. So we don't actually see the real reality. We see our version of reality.
Yeah.
And so I think getting clear, right, will allow you to find that right person on what exactly you're looking for. And then the second thing is becoming that man. So I was, even though I was immature and I had some character flaws, like I was still striving to be the best version that I could. And she saw that ambition. She saw my charisma that I was building up. She saw the good things inside of me. And so I think that, like, to your point, I believe that's such a critical aspect. And with guys that we work with, the deal is most couples don't do it that way. So most couples, they end up together, they date, they fall in love before they have fully vetted that person. And now they're not stuck, but now they're with a person that they need, like, it's their opportunity to grow together now, right? However, either way, if you found the perfect person or somebody that's not the ideal fit, but you've learned to work with them, they can be the ideal fit, not based on how they change, but how you adapt and how you change related to that person. Because our experience of life isn't life itself. Our experience of life comes from how we experience it, like how we relate to life, right? So like the struggles.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Huh?
Tell me what you mean by that.
Yep. So we don't experience life. We experience how we relate to life. So you get in a car accident. How you relate to that incident, that circumstance, will determine the quality of your life. You marry somebody that's an alcoholic. How you relate to that, how you like your meanings behind that, right? The meaning that we create really dictates the quality of our life. So your life isn't about your life circumstances. It's about how you relate to those circumstances. And so that's probably one of the most important things a human can learn how to be aware of and how to become effective at, is learning, how do I relate to things and how do I shift how I relate? How do I shift the meanings that I give the things that happen in my life? So that's it. And that, like, the quality of your life is so it's directly tied to all the meanings that you give the things in your life, all the struggles, all the opportunities, the stress that you have right now. If you're listening to this and you feel like you don't make enough money, cool. What's the meaning that you're giving to that? That you have an opportunity to make more, or that you don't have enough and you're in a scarcity mindset? Like, how we relate to everything determines the quality of our lives. And there's obviously a lot of other aspects to that, but that's something that I've spent a lot of time working on, is how I relate to the challenges in my life.
You unpack that so well. I want to add this, 'cause I think this is important as you're listening. It's easy for us to say, no, Skylar, you don't get it. This is the meaning of it. This is the story. This is what's happening in my life. And my friends, you get to actually update these meanings. You get to update, in essence, the story, the meaning of what the story means. You get to update it. It's, I was listening to the other day, there's a father that's strung out on drugs in and out of prison. He has two sons. They're twins. One son is strung out on drugs in and out of prison. They said to him, how did you end up here? And he says, isn't it obvious? He said, look at my dad. And they had another son. They said he was a top executive for a Fortune 500 company, beautiful family, beautiful life. Life's going the right way. He said, how did you end up here? He says, isn't it obvious? He said, look at my dad. And same experience. They were twins growing up, but they attached different meanings to the story of what was happening. And so, my friends, you can actually update this stuff. You don't have to have that person that's causing you all that stress right now in your life. You can actually switch the meaning of what's happening and look at them in a different way and reassociate that stuff. And so, Skylar, that is so profound. I thought you laid that out perfectly. And that is, to your point, it's almost like we don't see the world as we see the world that we choose to focus on. And that's what you're saying with that.
Yep.
getting hyper focused on
And
certain parts of what
there's
we
very
see.
rarely any inherently true meanings. So like, so I had my sister, so again, I'll say that again. There very rarely is any inherently true meanings. So we get to choose the meaning. Well, isn't that delusional, Skylar? Right? Can I just make up that, oh, this is all just good stuff and it's really bad stuff that's happening to me? So I met my mom. So early on, as my mom was doing her thing, my sister ended up getting hooked on drugs and started hanging out with the wrong crowd. She was about 14, and she ended up having her first kid. So I remember I was sitting in the living room, and then my mom says, "Hey, I was in the actually I was in the bedroom. My mom was in the living room. She's like, 'Hey, Skylar, can you come here real quick?'" And so I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I walk over. I'm about 17. And I walk in and she's like, "Hey, I got to tell you something." So I just got a call from Adriana, and she just found out she's pregnant. And she's pregnant, and it's with this guy, Andy, drug
Hmm.
user, in and out of jail already. And so, like, I immediately, man, my
And
little
how old is your sister
sister,
at this point?
she was 15 at this
Oh,
point,
wow.
15, pregnant with a drug dealer. And so I walk, I'm like, I just can't even take what she just shared. So I like kind of run to my bedroom. Then I go in the bathroom for whatever reason. I take a shower. I think because I just had a ton of emotions coming through me. I start bawling. I mean, I'm just like
Mm,
crying like crazy in the shower because I'm like, literally my sister's life is ruined, right?
mm.
Like with a drug dealer at that age, and she's already struggling. So, like, she went through this whole journey. She ended up having another kid before she was 18. She got into drugs more, got them both taken away for a period of time. And anyway, went on this journey and this entire path. And so she's been clean for 6 years, and we moved her. I had to move her out of California to Indiana, to a different state, away from all the associations. And I ended up moving her. We bought 16 acres over here in Dallas 2 years ago, and I moved her recently on our property, and my mom on our property, my grandma, and her two kids. So my two nephews are
Wow.
all living on here, and we're
Wow.
having an amazing time. And as I'm looking at them, I'm looking at my nephew. I'm like, wow, that's so crazy. Jacob, he's 18. He's 18 now. And so I'm looking at him, I'm like, man, he's such a good kid and the coolest kid ever. And so I'm like, so I'm thinking, because my initial meaning was this is the worst thing that could have ever happened. And I'm looking at this stud 18-year-old that lives on our property. We have a great relationship. I mentor him. I'm like, I am so happy that happened. That was one of the best things that could have ever happened to our family, was this kid being born, Jacob. So which one's true? Was it the worst thing that ever happened, her getting pregnant from a drug dealer, or was that the best thing that ever happened? And so, like, which one's more true? We get to pick the meaning, and and based on that, like, we get to kind of choose how it plays out many times. So we get to choose. So before we just apply a meaning subconsciously and automatically, be aware our mind is always applying meanings, and many times they're not even accurate or true, and they won't work out. Getting a car accident, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Well, it depends. So anyway, it's such a critical thing that daily our mind is creating meanings and stories. We got to check in, like, what story did I just create about my wife getting upset with me or not wanting to have sex with me? What was the meaning or the story I just created about that? Am I not good enough, or is it that she's having an off day and doesn't want to have sex? So
This is such important stuff. It's such important stuff because the meanings create emotion. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Like what you focus on
yeah.
starts creating new emotions. To your point, am
Mhm.
I pissed or am I empathetic?
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like which one am I going to walk around and tell people where you live is not where you live. You don't live in Dallas or in Salt Lake City or in St. George or in California. The state you live in is not where you live. Texas is not where you live. Where you live emotionally, the emotional state.
Yeah.
If you're ticked off all the time, that's where you live. If you're stressed all the time, that's where you live. If you're depressed and anxious all the time, that's where you live versus grateful, empathetic, hyper aware, sensitive. Those are emotions, and you can change these emotional states, and a lot of that comes from the meanings we choose to attach. So that is such profound stuff. Let's go back to the grind. So your wife you must have casted some vision for her to say, sweetheart, this is all going to be worth it. Like you are crushing
Was a
your
good vision.
financial services
That's actually a
business.
skill set that I also would recommend people have, is the ability to cast vision. Like that has served me well for so much of my life. Being able to share the vision of where we're going, and all my companies I've built, and like I've been very effective in pulling in top talent because of the vision that I set. Yeah.
Unpack that. Is that just man, that's just you doing you, or is there kind of a framework or a formula or a strategy or something that you could teach someone else like a mom today listening? How does she cast vision for those kids? Like a dad today listening, how does he cast vision for the family? Someone listening says, man, my business is struggling right now. How do they go cast vision for the team that we're going to make it through this? Like, how do you teach people to build that muscle to learn how to cast vision?
Yeah, I think part of it, there's a verse, Romans 8:28, says God works out everything for the good of those that love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So he works it all out for the good. So like I have my faith in Christ that everything's going to work out for the good. And we've all heard the term like, oh, everything happens for a reason. Now, most people say it, and in my events actually ask, how many believe everything happens for every single hand always raises, but they don't really believe it. Like when stuff's going
Hmm.
down, they're not like, "Oh, this is happening for a reason. There's a positive thing that's going to come out of this." It's like, no, no, no. They're in the crap of it. And so I believe truly that like God will use things and there will be some blessing on the other side. So anyway, so as I'm going through life, like in interacting with people, I don't have a specific formula, so it's kind of built into the way I've operated, but I have confidence that things will work out. So whatever I'm doing, I've learned to sell the vision. So selling the vision looks like me clearly explaining where we're going. And I think I initially learned that. I joined a network marketing company like early on when I was 16. Like, and they sold the vision really well. And so I kind of learned how to like if people are going to follow me and run with me, I need to tell them where they're going. I need to tell them where they're going, and a hopeful vision, an exciting vision, a compelling vision, something where they can buy into it. And just by them buying into the vision, they actually perform at a higher level. Like with Rise Up Kings, our goal is to be the number one faith-based personal development company in the country. Tony Robbins status, but for faith-based people that want biblical growth. And so like our goal is that. And so I'm selling like we're all on the train moving towards that, our entire organization. And so it's how do I so my ability to effectively sell the vision is in direct proportion to the quality of people and the effectiveness of how they perform. So I do that with my kids too, like where we're going as a family. I do that with my wife. Like I mentioned, like you mentioned, right, when we first got married, like the vision of where I'm going to take our family. Like I sold myself. And so sales, right, you're like the sales guru, the sales master. Like sales is basically, right, you're getting clear on where they're at, getting clear on where they want to go, and then sharing the middle ground. Like this is how we can get you to where you want to go, right? What I'm offering can get you there. So they have to have a vision. If a client doesn't know where they want to go, then they're kind of not gonna take any action. But if you can get them excited about the future of where they can go, then they'll go take action. They'll go move. And so yeah, I don't know exactly how I do that. However, in each interaction, I'm usually selling some vision of where we're going in almost
Yeah,
all of my interactions.
you're rooting your foundation in faith is critical to that vision, because vision answers a question. And by the way, as you're listening to this, I want to encourage you, as your 15-year-old son right now is going through an addiction challenge, I want you to understand this question, because your son's subconsciously asking this. If your team right now is down, if your business is down in sales and revenue is down, it's a stressful time. The team, the company, people are asking this, the employees are asking this. If your marriage is struggling right now, your spouse is subconsciously asking this. And here's the question. This is why vision is so important. The question is, will it always be this way? Will it
Good.
always be this way? So if we can, in essence, ask them, and by the way, my friends, you may not have, when Skylar's talking about like, hey, here's the clear vision, that is a little bit of his gifting, plus he's put a lot of effort and work into it, even as he can clearly articulate the vision for Rise Up Kings, those words, that takes some time to really hone that down. Maybe right now you don't have it that honed down. Maybe right now you're thinking, I'm not sure how we're going to get there. I just, have hope that we're going to get there. That's all that people need to hear. You just say to him, say, son, or honey or team, like, we're going to get through this. It's not always going to be this way. I know it's a tough time right now. I know it's a challenging time right now. I know it's a dark season right now. I know we're all discouraged right now. Listen, I got a vision. The vision is it's not always going to be this way. We're going to get there. We're going to get through this. That provides hope. And when hope is this idea that the sun's coming up in the east tomorrow. You know, it's always, you've heard the concept, it's always darkest before dawn, right? So this idea that, like, look, I know it's dark right now, but what? It's the hope that it's the sun's coming up in the east. It's not always going to be this way, guys. It's not always going to be this dark. And so I think the most simplistic thing is just answering that question. And Skylar, to your point, your hope, and by the way, mine too, but your hope is grounded in this faith that you have in Christ, right? That's where your hope is grounded, to where it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out.
And people
that helps you to cast vision into your businesses too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people don't live into the future that's actually coming at them. They live into the future that they believe is coming at them. So if you have two people, both are making, one of them's making 100 grand a year, one of them's making 200 grand a year. So you have two couples, two families, and they both have news that they're going to be making 150 a year. So the 200K is going to 50, or is going to 150. The 100K is going to 150. So but it's not happening yet, but it's in the future. They're going to live into that future. So the 200K, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be sad. They're going to be stressed. They're going to go downsize. They're going to figure out what they have to do. So they live into the future they believe is coming at them. And so, like, your team, your family, they will live into that future that they believe is coming at them. So it's just a law of the way human beings work. We live if we believe our marriage is going to be, like, we do this at our marriage events, like, if people believe there's hope for their marriage, they will act differently than if they believe there's no hope for their marriage.
Yeah. When we say, is it always going to be this way? If the answer is yes, it's always going to be this way. To your point, it's going this direction. We make very different decisions than if it's going this direction. If we're like, hey, we're going to make it through this. There's hope for the marriage. We can overcome this. You make very, very different decisions than if it's like, man, this is the end, Another way for you guys to think about it is this. You want to create your future with your future, not your past. So you create your future with the future vision that you have of your life or of yourself or of your family or of your relationship. You create your future with your future, not your past. A lot of times what we do is we kind of cast out the vision, right, of the future, but we do it with, like, all the mistakes that we've made, all the challenges we've been through, and all the, like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing in my life. I don't even have it figured out. So it's with all of our past, and we can't seem to cast a vision. My friends, create of your future with your future vision of yourself. That's the person you say, kids, we're going to get there. Honey, we're going to get there. Team, we're going to get there. We're going to get there because I'm going to grow into this and we're going to become that. And our family's going to be known and, that kind of thing. You start creating a future with the future vision of yourself versus your past vision of yourself. And that can start to help to pull you through and remind people it won't always be this way. We're going to get through this thing. And that's the way, I had a friend of mine, Skylar, you'll appreciate this. I tell his story actually in my book. His parents met in Auschwitz. His mom and dad met in Auschwitz. And they were not Jews, but they were sympathetic to the Jews. They survived Auschwitz, and they had rags on their shoulders. They were people with no country at this point. They eventually made it to Ellis Island. They raised 5 boys in cinder blocks, no running water apartments there in Ellis Island. All 5 of the boys became successful. One of them is a successful Christian pastor. All of them are highly educated. The friend that I knew had done over $2 billion in business in the network marketing direct sales world. And he said that his dad would when he got old enough to understand kind of what had happened with the war and with the camps, when he's old enough, he said to his dad, he said, "Dad, how did you survive the camps?" He said, "Son, when I was in the camps, he would take beatings." He said the beatings were so brutal that he would pass out. His mind would go unconscious to survive. And he said, so Dad, how did you survive the beatings? And he said, I would have a vision of you. He said, I would have a vision of your brothers. He said, the vision of you and your brothers is what kept me alive in the camps. I would literally pass out and he would literally like almost hallucinate or have a vision of his sons, his future sons. and to remind himself it won't always be this way.
Mm.
So my friend gave me a plaque, a wooden plaque. It was an engraven plaque that said, lead with vision. And his advice to me was, when times are tough, lead with vision. Because vision, again, my friends, answers the question, will it always be this way? And the way you get through stuff is with hope. The way you get through stuff was with some vision to say, hey guys, we are going to make it through this. I know it's tough right now. And so as you're listening to this, when it's tough, when times are tough, that's when you need to lead with vision. So walk us through Rise Up Kings. You know, I remember you were sharing with me the story. I think you had kind of gotten into personal development and started learning, from these different great people, but you felt like something was missing. You know what I'm saying? It was just like there was something missing, that you felt like you had an opportunity to serve at a higher level. So walk us through how that evolution happened for you.
Yeah, so as I was growing that carpet cleaning company, we eventually merged it into a restoration company. We had our first kid, and I struggled staying balanced. Like, that was one of the hardest things, was to grow the business. Every time I'd focus on growing the business, I would lose track of my wife and our son. And she'd say, "Hey, I miss you." Like, "Hey, you've been busy." I'm like, crap. And then I'd go back to my wife and spend more time being out of balance with the business and in balance with my wife. And then the business would start to tank and start to struggle. And so I'm like, there's got to be a better way than this. And so I eventually started working with some processes. We built something called the 4 pillars: faith, family, fitness, and finances. And there's a 4 specific pillars that everybody has their own, way that those are our 4 pillars. And so I started investing in those on a regular basis and getting guys together. And I eventually was able to create some success in all of those, instead of being majorly. I don't believe in perfect balance, but you can still. I was listening to a guy, actually, Alex Hermosi, good guy, a lot of cool content, but just off on some stuff. Like, he's just like, grind more, like, drop everything you have, grind it out. You don't need to. And this is coming from a guy that doesn't have kids, right? So he thinks that's the way, is just to grind more, and you don't need to be in balance or have a morning routine. Is this thing is like, morning routines are BS. I'm like, no, actually having a clear process to which you invest in all of the aspects of your life, like some routine, is actually very powerful. That's my opinion. So anyway, I started building these things out, and we eventually hit some success. And then I had the house, I had the cars, I had our family, I had everything I wanted. And then I remember the term, you're either growing or you're dying. And so I'm like sitting there on the couch. I'm like, man, I've reached some success, but I don't want to start the decay process. So I'm like, what do I do? So that's when I started finding different personal development seminars, and like I reinvented myself. And I just saw some big gaps in what they were teaching. Traditional kind of personal development, they kind of stripped out God from those things, or it was kind of new age spirituality. And so but it was powerful. So I had a big transformation that started happening within me through personal growth. And I worked through some childhood trauma and just some other issues that I never knew were even there. And it caused me to be way more effective at loving my wife and my kids and those around me, and being Christ-like. And so, like, I'm like, you know what? I want to bring this to more men, specifically men. And I want to help guys level up. And if a guy can shift, like, he can help his whole family shift. And then 3 years ago, we launched Rise Up Kings, where I kind of combined the physical nature of an event, right? Pushing guys hard so they can. I'm obsessed with reaching potential. Like, how do you
By the way,
maximize
explain some of the examples of when you say pushing them hard and physical, give us an example of some of the stuff, the activities these men walk through.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems with men today is weakness. Is they have weak character, and they have weakness in the way they operate. They go to porn when they can't be strong enough to be there for their wives. There's just a high level of guys that are not operating from a healthy masculine presence and strength. And so they're making all bad decisions. Adam and Eve, all bad decisions come from weakness. When we are in our weakest part, we make a poor decision of ourselves. And so I want to help guys level up and become strong character-wise. And so how do you do that? You can do that through multiple ways, but you can also do that through physical intensity, through physical pain. And so we've created just some experiences where we push guys to the edge of what they think they're capable of, whether it be during a workout or doing a mud pit or doing something. We push them right to the edge where they think they don't have anything left, and then they end up pushing through. And from that physical physical shift, they realize that they have been operating at a lower capacity than they ever realized before. And so, like, you know what? I have way more than I thought. And so we do that over and over till when they leave this event. The event's a small part of it is physical, but the physical nature brings out this power that a guy maybe hasn't tapped into. And so we added a physical component, a spiritual component, emotional component. And so when a guy leaves, like, he's able to shed the crap that he's built up, all the walls he's built up, he's able to break those down and step into a new version of himself after the 3 days. And so I kind of built I built this 3-day experience where guys can start to reach their potential at a higher level. That's not kind of some boring church camp, nothing against church camps, but some like kind of boring kind of deal where it's just a bunch of guys just talking and kind of getting together. It's like, no, how do we go like really level up and transform, like be a different, I want guys, like I want transformation, not just growth.
That's what I think one of the gifts of what you're providing people is it is a transformative process to watch these men, go through this, right? This is not just sit in a room and hope it goes well. This is, there's curriculum, there's experience, there's transformational teachings where you're pulling stuff out that maybe they didn't even quite know was there. And it's really, really, really cool to watch what you build. And, it's funny when I stayed after and like I was signing some books and things and stayed after and was meeting with these men. And just their stories were just off the charts, I mean, they're just like saving their marriage or they'd lost, X amount of weight or they'd shit, they started, their business took to a whole different level. And it was really, really cool. One other thing I want you to talk about is, you become a master at scaling business. So I think a lot of us, we get going in our journey and then it kind of like, we can only put in so much effort at this point, and it's just, we're stressed out. I mean, you wrote a whole book called The 2-Day CEO. I mean, it's this idea of how do you create more scale right now in your life. You're even looking to really create more scale, leverage. Right? Where you can almost pull back, be more creative and have the business continue to scale. Walk us through some of your philosophies when it comes to 2-Day CEO. Those of us that are listening that own businesses, how do you teach and unpack for people to go to the next level when it comes to scaling the business?
Yeah, there's so much there on that process, and I think I think what's critically important is leverage. Like, how do you leverage your time that you have? We have so much time available to us. I've met guys that are running 30 different companies, yet they have the same amount of time as a guy running one company. Like, how the heck is that possible? Right? And I used to struggle running one business, like really struggle. Yet now I run multiple companies and have been able to scale at a whole new level. And so I think one is the realization, like, I got to leverage my time. So how do you leverage your time? You can leverage it through people, through having people that can support and take the tasks off your plate that you don't love, that maybe they love, right? So hiring quality people to support you, or partnering with quality people, or just having talented, what we have A, B, and C players, what we call A players. An A player is a high capacity person that fits culturally and goes above and beyond on expectations. So meaning you give them a task and they actually complete it better than you had thought. Like that's where I know, like, oh, I got an A player. I gave him something and they actually did a better job than what I was expecting. And they do this on a regular basis, and I don't need to motivate them every day. They show up motivated. Like, so we've built a team of A players, but you can't do that starting out. So if someone's starting out, it's, hey, who's my first hire? Is it an assistant? Is it an office assistant? Is it a man? Like, that's always my first hire. I need an office assistant, someone to handle all the administrative stuff that I can kind of hand off. And then I start to build processes around everything that happens. So I utilize people and processes to really start to build leverage within a company. So that's really the 2-Day CEO journeys, where I was at 5 days a week. And then I decided to go, I'm like, you know what? I bet I could cut 1 day a week out. So I took off Wednesday every day, every Wednesday for a year. I just took it off and hung out with the family, went to the zoo, Disneyland, just all that stuff. And then I realized I could fit everything that I did in those 4 days. But I believe there's the Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law states.
I was just about to say, that's exactly right.
It states that the work, work expands as to the time available for its completion. So the more time, if we say, hey, you have 5 days to get your work done, or 6 days for some of us, you'll find a way to get 6 days. But if I say, hey, you only have 3 days to do everything that you have to, and you have no more days, you'll find a way to get it done in 3 days. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so anyway, that's a powerful law when we start to operate that way. So I've utilized just people, like building up people, helping to develop leaders, finding talented people, and then process, like really building clear processes. I never do any one-off things. So if I'm going to send an email and I know I might send this email a couple more times, I'm going to build it into a process where it's a templated email and our team knows how to use that specific email. So everything we do at our events, everything's labeled. It's all process driven, every single event that we have. The script, some of the things are scripted. Everybody reads their agenda that they have for their role inside each event. Like everything is built into a process that allows it for systemization. Then you can really build a solid system. And then from that, it's not ran by people. People are running it, but they can just turn the wheel and everything else operates based on how they turn that one wheel instead of instead of having people be all of the wheels. You can actually the gears. You can have a person turn the gears and all these processes run the whole company versus having a ton of different people that we're imperfect. I want a perfect process. So we use technology, we use systems, we use scripts, we use things to make it more systemizable.
If someone's wanting to really dive into the process and the people, is 2-day CEO where you'd have them start with, if they really want you to take that deeper, is 2-day CEO where you direct them to start?
Yeah, it's kind of my journey of how I went from 5 days a week to 2 days to one day, and then I moved from California 2.5 years ago to Texas, ran the business remotely, and then we just sold our $13 million business 5 months ago. And it was crazy from beginning to end. The business, I met with the VPs, and the VPs were like, so I'm like, hey, by the way, my team runs the whole company. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, my team runs everything. They're like, well, we want you on the meetings. I'm like, I don't need to be on these executive meetings after I sold the company because I'm like, I don't even know what's happening inside the business. And so like Stephanie, my VP of ops, she's on all the owner meetings for this private equity company because she's been running the business for the last like 10 years. And so like so 2-day CEO, it kind of details out how do you from a ground up carpet cleaning company, how I scaled the exact processes I put into place, how I built the leadership team, the entire process of what it looks like to really systemize really any company. And then some cool little nuggets and some real stories that happened inside of my life. Yeah.
Uh, Also, when it comes to Rise Up Kings, what's the best way? So if I'm a man listening right now, I'm like, yo, that sounds like what I, am looking for. If I'm a woman listening, saying my husband would absolutely thrive in that environment. Where do they connect with you when it comes to Rise Up Kings?
Yeah. They can go to riseupkings.com, or they can follow me or look up Rise Up Kings on social media, Instagram and Facebook, or Skylar, Skylar, Lewis, Lewis. Just search me up and we can have a conversation.
And we'll have all this stuff in the show notes. But Skylar, listen, bro, the work you're doing in the world is really impactful. I tell people there's things that matter and there's things that really matter. You're doing work that really matters. You're helping men, you're helping families, you're helping people to draw closer to their faith. You're helping people to be their personal best and to really tap into their true potential. And it's really cool what you're doing to, help these men be better dads and better husbands and shake off some of the addictions and some of the things that have been holding him back. And I just a huge fan, bro, and really admire you and respect what the work you're doing. I respect the, overcoming the challenge to go do it, where you have 50 other things going on. So how do you actually go make it happen? And I just really respect what you and your wife have created. So nothing but love, man. I appreciate you coming on and love the conversation as well.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on here and back at you. What you're doing is incredible, and I look forward to staying connected.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode.